I usually just make light of it, say, well, it's about the worst opera singer in the world. But really, to talk about the movie, it's much more than that. It's about a marriage and a happy, long relationship, which between two people whose self-interest was equally served by the relationship as their honest feeling and affection for each other was there. So, yeah, I thought it was fun to look at that. The first time I heard about the project was when Stephen Frears called me and said, I have a part for you. And so I said, what is it? And he says, the worst opera singer in the world. And I was thrilled. Every music student that I've ever met is familiar with these recordings. Part of it is not just that it's bad singing, because you couldn't listen to it that long through the course of a whole aria. What's great about it, heartbreaking and heartbreakingly funny, is its aspiration. How much it wants. You can feel her when you listen to the recordings. You can hear her breath, where she takes a breath just a little bit too late to hit the note. But the aspiration is there, the desire, the love of music, and how close she comes. That's what's so great. I think there was Florence Foster Jenkins was born in 1886, I think. No, 1868. Is that possible? Yes, she was. She was born in 1868. So that was just after the Civil War. If you think about it. She was 32 at the turn of the century. And at that time, there was a great sort of fashion for tableaus, for staging tableaus that were sort of living pictures, so she did this in her organization, the Verdi Club, and she staged great moments from opera without singing, and moments from history. And she and the ladies would get dressed up as historical figures. So that's sort of where we begin our film. But as I say, our film condenses events and puts them all within a few days that took place over decades. Yes, the real Florence Foster Jenkins was the head of, I think, something like 60 organizations over her lifetime. She was the ultimate club lady, because that was in the days when the professions were not open to women. And so they were women of means to keep themselves busy. They put their hands on charitable good works. And she was a great patron of the arts in New York City. And it's also how she moved up through the social echelons of society. She certainly did keep the musical life of the city alive. She underwrote concerts at Carnegie Hall and many, many other beneficial societies for music and the arts, and she was a do-gooder in that way and spread the money around. She was very wealthy. She had inherited money from her family and her husband, and so it's with that she liberally sprinkled the city with her beneficence. I think you'll like that she's a person who has retained something that we all have when we're children, which when you're a kid and you can't really do anything that well. Nevertheless, you hurl yourself into the imagining of it, and you take delight in just the doing. It's the purest meaning of the word amateur, you know. She wasn't a professional singer. She only sang for, with the exception of Carnegie Hall, she sang only for her friends and for the society ladies and sort of hand-picked audiences that Bayfield gathered. You know, I thought, oh, this will be a piece of cake because I can't really sing that well. So, but it was much more difficult. First of all, she tackled the most difficult arias in the canon of, you know, operatic diva performances. I mean, she does the Queen of the Night, and she did Lakme from Delibes, the Indian princess, and all these things that are very, very challenging coloratura, way up in the stratosphere roles, and just to sing as well as for Florence Foster Jenkins was a challenge. I started with a real proper... at the time I was making a film with Audra McDonald, who's a great singer, and I asked her who her vocal coach was, because she has an amazing voice that sort of reaches the stratosphere, if she cares to use it that way. So I got her vocal coach, Arthur Levy, and he taught me these arias. And I tried to sing them as well as I possibly could first. And then we went off into the landscape of, you know, mistakes. But I did, a lot of the time, I didn't think about how Florence Foster Jenkins would have sang the arias. I thought how my Florence would approach them. You know, one thing that's interesting is when I remember hearing, I think it's Irving Berlin, and he was playing, a great American composer, playing his music, and he was singing along. And he was off pitch, wildly off pitch. So you would imagine that Irving Berlin knew when he was on, but in his head it sounded right. And there's a recording of him playing along, humming while he's playing, and so that gave me hope. I said, well, maybe there's that disconnect even in very accomplished people. I think the movie just comes alive when he comes on screen. Suddenly we know we have someone who's seeing things the way we do, seeing the movie from the audience's point of view. And that's sort of the function of MacMoon's character. He's, first of all, we're so lucky to have Simon. He's brilliant comic, but also can play these very, very difficult pieces. And Stephen was right. I don't think we could have done it without an actor who was also an accomplished pianist. But to be able to play these difficult pieces and at the same time be alert to what's going on in the room and react to it is, I mean, he had the hardest job of all, and he's just brilliant, I think. Yes, he gives you great latitude in terms of performance. He was avuncular. He's famously grumpy. He's like a grumpy uncle. But if he wasn't happy, he would go again. It's just he wouldn't tell you how to do it. He'd just say, all right, just try that again. But I feel you're right. So much of what he has the confidence of of all the great directors that I've worked with, which is that there's no effortful worry about whether they're making the right decision. He knows it when he sees it, and he's happy to move on. And that confidence gives actors confidence to feel okay about giving their all, and exposing themselves emotionally, because you trust that he's there, and he's got a really good eye. So I really loved working with him. There's a particular sort of befuddled English hysteria that he brings to this part, and a formal, sort of very graceful presence. The real Bayfield was exactly, sort of the bastard son of an English earl who moved to New York and tried to be an actor and wasn't very good. But he was gorgeous, and he did, from everything I can read, he did love Florence, and he took care of her for 35 years.